1 second.
Yes, I mean, I don't know, it sounds a little like a lot, but I don't know.
I mean, there's environmental issues, so.
Are there? That's what I want to.
They say, it
So
doesn't
to get
get,
the trustees
it is a
together for
burning,
preliminary,
Okay.
you have to have,
gas.
if we're to have a
Right,
preliminary,
but is it enough?
it has to be, okay.
Is it
And
three?
is there any home
Three?
stove?
It depends on who
If
you listen to,
it's more than.
Right,
You
okay,
know,
that's
some-
what I'm wondering, yeah, okay.
Because we're 7-person board.
Seems more minor as a stove, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Just like in a restaurant or a big commercial kitchen where you're breathing it in all day long. Maybe it's a
I thought
problem.
this was a closed door.
Yeah,
But that's where they're not doing it.
Right, exactly.
Welcome to our, what's today's date? March 10th presentation of the budget to the Board of Trustees. Since it's a public meeting, let's rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is this your first budget meeting, Agent?
It is.
Okay.
Actually, I was at a budget committee meeting last year.
Aha, you were, that is correct. So, just making sure you're live. Yep. Tired? A little bit. So first of all, thank you, Suzanne, especially dealing with our wonderful new software this year, which made some of the budgeting a little challenging. And thank you, Marla, for dealing with your first budget and not knowing how we budget and not dealing with our software ever before. So you'll see some of the stuff looks a little different, but some of the stuff looks the same. I'm going to start with our famous presentation that I've used for many, many years.
Thank you.
It's all right. We all know who each other is. We tried.
Yeah, it's bothering me.
You want to be clear?
So we went for a clear
There you go,
together.
that one. Oh, there you go.
So this current list, this most recent year, we were able to replace some of our equipment. We replaced the F550 and we replaced the F350. Thank you, federal government, for the ARPA funds. You can see the aging of our equipment. We continue to save to replace the international large dump truck, which is in need of some repairs right now. And we continue to save to replace the payloader, even though it's in good shape. It is now 14 model years old. And if we were to ever have another Isaias or Sandy or any other type of very large storm, that is one of the most important pieces of equipment. And I want to take trees down that's in the middle of the road and all that other stuff. It's one of our most important pieces of equipment. And even though this year looks like we're going to invest on an engine rebuild in essence, we should replace it sooner than later so that we're not caught with a problem. Road conditions. Rich updated the road condition report. This year he added two things. One, where there's concrete gutters that might need to be repaired, you'll see the black line. And then this most current year, we've had a few catch basins. I guess the proper word is collapse. Well, fall apart.
Some of them are falling apart and some of them, the top part of the truck hit them or went over and.
So we need to repair and replace some of them. And Rich is also starting to note that as well with the purple indication here so that we can start keeping apprised of what needs to be repaired so we can save for it. Last year, if you remember, our friends at National Grid replaced a very large portion of elder fields on their expense. This year, they notified us, kind of by me, they want to do a gas main replacement, Ridge Drive East, going all the way down to Ridge Drive West, turning into Greenway. They're going to touch Middle Neck Road just a teeny little piece because I guess that's where the pipe is. Go halfway up Overhill, a quarter of the way up Crabtree, up Peachtree, possibly touch a little bit of Center. And this actually on Ridge Drive looks like it might cross over Center, and they're going to hit a little bit east of Center on Ridge. That being said, we have two possibilities. One, they can just do all the work, but not finish the half road and quarter road and missing pieces, or they will give us the funds and we can do it ourselves. So I think we're probably going to do it ourselves.
We used to do the work, you're talking about the road work only, right? I mean, we're not excavating.
Yes.
Oh, we're gonna excavate
No,
too?
you're
No,
going to be
yes,
putting
doing
down
the
the
road
gas.
work.
Oh,
Yes, no, they come and do the gas work. And then they're supposed to restore the road, but in this opportunity, we can do the road restoration because they won't pay to finish the half or a quarter road if they don't go all the way to the end. Additionally, for those of us who live nearby, the intersection of Ridge Drive East and Ridge Drive West, you know, you're a big biker, and you know because you walk all the time up there. The way the cars merge, it's terrible. And if they're going to rip this up, I think it's an opportunity for us to
Sorry, Randall,
reconfigure.
where, because I'm not that familiar, where's east and west on here?
By the picture of the coffee mug, kind of. where you
Down
wanna see it.
here?
Yeah.
Lower right,
Near the
Look, in the center, bottom center.
here?
Mhm.
Okay, right before Northern, is that Ridge Drive?
Right, that's the beginning of the islands.
Yeah, but is that called Ridge Drive, where's Ridge Drive?
This is Ridge Drive East.
Gotcha,
And that's Ridge Drive
thank you.
West.
Okay.
It's a
thank you.
fairly quick project when they do it, right?
When they do the gas lines?
When they rip everything
It
up.
all
right?
depends. They might have to rip up some of the gutters. They don't know until they know.
I'm just thinking parking on those two streets, but again, if it's only a couple of days, because that's the,
They either backfill same day or they put a plate
that's what it
on.
was. Something.
And you could park the same day. It's not going to upset the roads. But at that intersection, as both of you are aware,
It's horrible.
that's a terrible.
Yeah, the curve to
So
the,
since we're going to have this ripped up, we're going to bring in a traffic engineer to redesign that. I'll call it the first island or the third island, depends which way you look at it, to make it safe so that cars can flow around that turn the right way. So you'll see when we get to the budget where I'm talking about some of that. Which is the next page. So this is a new slide. Thank you, Marla, for proposing we do it this way. This is our proposed capital spending for the upcoming budget year. So we're starting, we have two capital reserves, one for hardware and one for road work. The first one is our road work one. We started with a balance of 51.8. We have $582,000 or so of CHIPS funds that is available, that will be available to us prior years and starting April 1 this future year. We're estimating we're going to get about $200,000 from National Grid for the roads. And then you'll see on the expenditure side, we're estimating, this is estimates, we still have to work with our engineer to get real costs of what we're thinking we might have to spend to finish the project. So possibly if 2 comes in, we'll spend $250. If 150 comes in, it might cost us 2. We don't have the numbers yet because we just kind of got this confirmed on Friday. Additionally, we're then also wanting to move $50,000 from this year's budget to capital reserve, and then you'll see our funds will be 51 in, plus that equals 884. Now coming out of the 884, we're looking possibly, and I say possibly because there's still some moving parts, on redoing most of Stonytown this year. And I say most, it would be from the Plando Manor, Plando Manor border, possibly up to,
Well, the choice was Chanticleer or Cardinal or.
sorry,
up to
Cardinal,
the
possibly
park.
up to Cardinal, which is where you'll see the crosswalk. We'll possibly do it there. We don't want to go all the way to all the way to Port Boulevard because the water district is still doing work there. And if we pave it now, they're going to mess it up. And they still have other work to do. And they will redo the road bed, and maybe we'll work with them, like the same thing we're doing National Grid. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. You'll see that 250 from Ridge Drive East, Ridge Drive West, that I explained earlier. We have a piece of Country Club from Brookside to Hewlett to Farmview, that there's that water ponding issue and general not great road over there. Drake needs a little bit of work. And as I mentioned earlier about the, what do I officially call it here? The catch basin repairs, there's your catch basin repairs that we need to do. That's expenditures of 871, which leaves us with 13,000 left in our reserves for
you have
road
nothing in the
work.
budget for Bridge Road. Because I fear that may be.
That will not be this year.
Okay.
Bridge Road, we decided that we would wait until they finish
Well, they're
because
gonna finish this year. Oh, hopefully.
If they finish, it's supposed to be like October, November. You don't do road paving in October,
Okay.
November. Usually we do them in the summerish time so that it has less effect on school buses and whatnot.
That's fine.
That's usually when we do our
I just,
So yeah, we're punting that till next year because remember, we wanted to do it last year.
yeah, no, I do remember that.
But we don't know what crane is gonna come and what other piece of massive
I can
hardware.
give you an idea. It's on my doorbell.
You live very close?
Yeah,
Oh,
he backs up on the train tracks.
Yeah, all the equipment's coming down my drive.
wow.
No, well, there you go. So you can imagine what it's doing to our lovely roads.
Well, that's why I brought it up, but
Yeah.
you're right, it's not gonna be, you can't pave in the winter anyway, so.
No, we want to pave when they're done. And if National Grid if Long Island Railroad messes stuff up, we're gonna make them pay for it. So we'll see what happens. Then we have the capital reserve fund for equipment. That's for the trucks I previously mentioned. We have 51 in it now. We want to throw another 50 in it. That'll be a total of 101. And then our total capital reserves at the end of 2025-26 would be savings of $115,000. I'm going to go over the generalization of the budget, and then we can go into the specifics afterwards. Revenue by category, we're looking to increase taxes this year by a very low amount of 1.5%. We have an increase of our non-property taxes, which are pilot, which is primarily stuff that's coming from the
St. Francis.
hospital when they have been taking the properties over. So that's why the pilot non-property taxes increased primarily through the pilot. Our home and community service, that's increasing by 7%, and that's mostly from our death certificates,
1%. Oh, 7%.
7% from last year. So the use of property and money, that is our interest earned. So that's up 12% from
So we're
last
going to
year.
kill more people in the village to make sure that goes up.
Which,
Starting with ages.
It's starting with me, okay, I
That,
apologize.
so, I'm sorry, the use of 40,000, that's not total interest from NICLAS and your investment in the money market, that's it?
Mhm. Our license and permits are up, and that's up because we adjusted our building permit fees to be more in line with the other villages nearby. Our fines and forfeitures are down, and the reason it's down is because, oh no, sorry, that one's up, my mistake, that's up, that's our court fees. I keep on jumping to the next one in my line. So our court is a lot more active with our new code enforcer, thank you, Jerry, very much. And so that's why some additional funds are coming in from there. Our miscellaneous, our minor sales, and most importantly, we say, hey, this number is kind of up since last year. That's gift and donations. That primarily is the, what are we calling the fund?
beautification.
Adopt an Island, Adopt a
Oh, the
Medium.
sponsor medium?
Sponsor medium program, so
I'm sorry, where is that? In which one?
miscellaneous. Now, the best thing, if you have questions, if you pull out this page, this explains all the categories.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I would just rip it right out and then hold it.
It's right on the top.
It's this one, AJ.
The short- On the other, the smaller one for this.
Right.
Where? Sorry. Oh, here.
Yeah.
Right? This one you're talking about?
Yes.
Yep.
And,
That's a quick explanation of everything goes. And it's on our website. It's been on our website for a while, so if any residents are curious, the answer is there. So again, that's from the Adopt a Median program. State aid is state aid. Our CHIPS funding, which is always very important for our roads. And most importantly, we have a balanced budget this year. So it is our goal to not have to take any money out of our general reserve in order to help balance the budget like we've done in the past. And then since I always like pie charts, here's my famous beautiful pie chart for those people who want to look at it. Now into expenses by category. As always, I have one slide with fire and then I do one without fire because adding the fire really increases our budget by a lot, and then it doesn't make the percentages look very kosher. So that's why we always take the fire out of our budget when you're looking at the actual percentages. Legislative, we're staying the same. Our judicial is going up slightly, for two reasons. One, actually the big one, is this year, we're having our village attorney apply the costs of what he charges us for court in the court area versus what he does for us for the regular, because I actually want to run a P&L for our court at some point. And by having that expense in the judicial line, it helps us out being able to do that. So it's just really an accounting thing, but that's why it's up more this year than you'll see in the past. Executive, that's just my reimbursement of mileage. Finance is
Auditor and accountant.
thank you, and that's relatively flat. Our staff and clerk, that's up a little bit, and a lot of that has to do.
It's
not
minus.
up,
It's
down.
minus.
Down.
It's down.
I'm looking at I always look at the left. Sorry, that's down, and that's down due to salary adjustment. Our legal and other, that's down because we took those dollars and put them over to
Into the court.
judicial instead.
So what is in legal? Is that just our town attorney, or is that?
That's our contracted services for our attorney and tax.
Tax certiorari,
Thank you.
and in case there are any lawsuits against us, we have money in there just in case.
For
We have
legal
insurance
fees.
though, too, right?
We do, yes, we do.
But there are some,
But that's not that line.
no, there are some
Health and
things that wouldn't be covered, which without going into detail, we had some personnel issues in the past, if you remember. And that wasn't covered by our insurance. So that would be when we need to bring in an outside attorney.
Things that fall outside the scope of his retainer.
Which are very few things, but they do happen. So we keep some money there for that. Our shared services, that's our building maintenance and equipment. Our special items, that's your insurance, your municipal association dues, and that's up a little bit because, what did we have up this year in there? Oh, our insurance, that's because insurance is
Insurance
like
went up.
Insurance mostly gone up.
Yep.
liability insurance, everything is going up.
Everybody's insurance went up.
Yes, and this is an estimate. We didn't get the actual bill yet from our insurance carrier. Code enforcement, that is code enforcement and our
Hold
security.
on, back, special items?
Yep.
Didn't we take out that, or did we table that to next month? The association that we were not so sure we were getting anything for?
That's in there now because
Okay.
it's a tentative proposal.
Wasn't that like $5,000?
It is,
Yes.
but we kept it in just in case.
We haven't
Gotcha.
decided to take it out.
Okay.
And perhaps trustee Lewandowski will get a better explanation from our friends at the people. I don't know. Doesn't he share a desk with you?
I was in work there.
Oh. All right, so code enforcement, that is what we include as, for code enforcement and security, because that's the way the state puts it in the same
Do you have
budget
a
area.
breakdown of that?
It's in the budget that's to your right when we get to the line items, if you want to then discuss line items.
Is security going up?
So, the reason security is up, when we first hired Pro Protection last year, at the time when so Pro Protection is keeping their rate the same. We already spoke to them, so they're going to keep their rates this year the same as last year. When we first hired Pro Protection, we were thinking at the time that there was a possibility we would get rid of them and hire a less expensive service that didn't have the former and current Leos. And we kind of learned that it's better to have those trained professionals versus untrained professionals.
So part of the first year, we didn't have.
Now, we expected at some point, when we launched this last year, we kind of discussed amongst ourselves, you know what? After a bunch of months, we can pivot to not pro. not former Leo type security companies. But we're getting the good service from these people, so there's no reason to pivot. So unfortunately, that's why we didn't pivot. And if we did pivot, we would have had, that line item would probably be flat. It wouldn't be an increase.
So just because, unless do you want to go through the whole thing and then we come back with our questions? What's the best?
Yeah, let's go through the whole thing.
Okay.
That's just so you guys have.
So give us the 90,000, then we come back.
That's why the pages are actually in order that I intend on speaking.
Fine. Just to make sure.
Yes. Fire prevention and control, that's our friends over at Roslyn Fire and Port Washington Fire. Port's going up, Roslyn's going down, which is a good thing for us Roslyn payers. Our building department, that is up 7%, and that has to do a lot with salary, and the other half has to do with the costs of running that department. And I'll get into the specifics when we get to those line items. I want to discuss one thing with you guys. The highway department, the reason that number is down so much is when we purchased the truck this year, I think it was the F-450, that went into the budget. And we're not spending that much on a truck this year because we're not buying trucks. So that's why that line item has gone down so much. Our economic assistance opportunity is up 20%.
That's the part.
And that's the parks and islands. So when Mary Jo says, where's the money for islands and beautification? That's the line item right here.
So that'll pay for country club. Where are we paying for the rest of the whole park? This is the whole park and all the islands, 10 grand?
No,
No.
51 is the whole 51.
51 grand.
10 is the islands, but so is the sponsorship money, which is 10.5 that I got. So that's like 20,000.
So we'll come back to that. So I'm going to circle because I have a bunch of questions. Is that all right? Then
I just want to do the
Yep,
10,000
understood.
flip view. Sanitation, luckily we have that contract in place so that there's no change. Our employee benefits are actually going down. They're going down because one, we're hoping that when we approve that incentive for employees to go on spouse or domestic partner, that's some savings. Additionally, we've had some people leave us because they passed away. So those were employees from 25 plus years ago. Also with our village justice and his wife passed away this year. And we were funding
Our old
insurance.
village justice.
Yeah, sorry.
Not our current.
Yeah,
really.
so Dennis is fine.
That's
Right.
right.
My apologies. Yes, so they both came off of our insurance last year, so that's why we have the savings there. And then the transfer to other funds, that is where we are moving the monies to capital reserve. As I stated earlier, page 50 and 50. This is the same items, I just removed fire prevention and control, because then you could see that we really only have a $3.3 million budget, not a $4 million budget, because the difference of that $700,000 approximately is the fire budget. And as always, so
With that kind of logic, you could say, well, then take out the 900,000 for sanitation, because
no,
I don't know, why do we take out fire? I forgot.
Because we're passed through.
We're collecting their
We
taxes.
collect it and then we pay it.
Oh, right,
every
right.
village resident pays us fire.
Right, because
AJ is Manhasset Lakeville. His fire goes to Mary Jo in the
yeah, it
town.
goes to the town.
The
No,
our
I
fire
remember
goes
now. Yeah,
here,
I
so-
couldn't remember, yeah.
it inflates the numbers.
Right,
That's why we've always pulled it out, just to make it a more realistic.
yeah, no, I remember. Yeah.
It's
That's why-
fair.
That's
No,
why
no,
I forgot why.
If we make a change to something and it changed the budget, let's say by 8%, if you include fire, once you pull fire out, it might be a 10 or 11%. That's more accurate change to show the
Right,
taxpayers
no,
where
no,
the dollars
I
are
remember.
going.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
To me, what's important of that, you have to be mindful of the fact that like my taxes won't change at all. But when Roslyn went crazy last year, the people that lived in Roslyn thought that the village tax got much higher because we had to collect for Roslyn. So in people's heads, it's like, wait a minute, my taxes went up X percentage. It wasn't because of us, it was because of the fire
They don't
district.
care, they call me and yell anyway.
That's what I mean, that's,
True.
no, but that's, you know,
So
you
fra-
have to be
Oh,
mindful.
taxes are $45 more than they were
right,
last
so
year.
Max
But it's not the village taxes.
You know, I have a $6 million house, I need money to run it.
Exactly.
our
Yeah,
taxes,
for
our fire
$400.
tax went up a lot
Meanwhile,
last
their
year.
village tax is
It
probably
is what it is. And it had to do,
$800.
AJ, with
Not for me, though.
No, but the Roslyn side, the reason it went up and Port Washington go up that much is there was the 5-year,
Moratorium. Oh, so, yeah.
not
5-year, the
moratorium.
tax numbers or the.
What's the term for it?
Cap or
The
something like that?
assessment. No.
Do we have a tax
The
expert here on
the
taxes?
TIP, what was it called? The TIPP, the payment program, where people, when they
Phase
raise.
in, it was a phase
It's a
in.
phase in.
So with our Nassau County taxes, everything was
Yes.
being phased in by 5 years.
Mm.
The fire
So they upped
department
all those
opted
assessments.
not to do the 5-year phase in. They did the phase in immediately. So some villages, their fire tax went down a lot. I won't name them. But other villages like Flower Hill, ours went up. And we kind of asked very strongly to have the phase in. And they didn't want to do it. And that's why Roslyn stopped paying their fire tax last year, if you remember that conversation. Because they said, well, if you're not going to do the phase in, we're not going to pay you at all. And so this year, for whatever happens, we're doing better on the Roslyn side. And I'm sure some of the other villages are not upset because their taxes went up the way it is. All right, now I will open the floor to questions on anything having to do with revenue first. So I did make a new spreadsheet, slightly different than what I sent you guys on the weekend. I put in my mayor comments, to hopefully answer things, also notes to
Keep
myself.
going.
Keep on going.
It's
There you
like the
go.
third page there. Here we
That's
go.
the revenue. So there's the actual line items of the various items. You know, you can see our business signs are going up because we're actually, the fees went up, and this year we're doing a better job in actually billing our sign companies, the businesses, because the sign permits in the past really
Is this
weren't.
revenue page without fire?
This includes fire.
Okay. Oh, it's revenue. We're not getting any revenue from fire anyway.
Right.
Never mind, stupid question.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't answer your question the right way. I should have said.
No, it's not a revenue item, it's an expense item.
Actually, it does include fire, because if you go to the top item, real property taxes
It's
current.
collected.
Yeah, it's just.
So it's fire is in there. Yeah, that's why it's 4. If you look at the bottom line, that's why it's 4 million, not 3 point, whatever I said the number was previously.
3.3.
Thank you. Now, building permits is a very interesting beast, because we hope that we'll get the funds that we expect. It all depends on who's building what. We're supposed to get some nice money from St. Francis due to that Maria Assumpta reconfiguration that they're doing in preparation of moving people out of the, what's the name of the?
Visa.
Thank you. If there's no questions on revenue, let's go to expense. You saw earlier, I spoke about Jeff's retainer, remove that. I talked about salaries halfway down the first page. Same thing for contracted services. So unfortunately, in Central Garage, you see a lot of increases because the trucks need fixing. The big international truck that we can't afford yet to replace, it needs a new chain. That's I guess it's a chain that dispenses the salt, and that's like a $10,000 or $15,000 repair. It is rusted out. We got to replace it before it breaks. There's some suspension work that needs to get done on the truck. I believe it needs some tires. So to keep that truck running until we can replace it, that's where we're going to spend a little extra money there. Our building inspection salaries, that's an approval that we made this year to retain a key employee. Street administration salaries. Now that's an interesting thing that I guess I should address with you guys.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I'm following along. You're going through this, the detailed one now?
Mhm.
Okay.
Page 2, so.
Page 204.
Yeah, if you have questions, you can ask. So what we're looking
No,
to
got it, I
do,
just wanted to.
so what we're proposing to do, and I think it's a win-win for the village, and it's definitely a win-win for the highway department. Currently, the highway department is compensated 2 times base salary or 2-time hourly salary for any overtime. And overtime is considered if they're coming in on nights and weekends for snow plowing, or nights and weekends if a tree is down or any other type of thing that does pop up occasionally. In order to help them, in essence, make more money, we're looking to decrease their overtime rate and go from 2x down to 1.5x, but to increase their base salary. And we worked on a whole spreadsheet of, and I didn't bring that spreadsheet, unfortunately, with the proposed nice increase in their hourly salary based on like the average of overtime for the last 3 years. And it kind of helps them take home more money up front and not have to rely on overtime to make this extra compensation. It's better for us, we can budget it now. It's better for us that we can give them a slight bump in salary now, which helps keep them employed by us. We like the guys, we want to keep them on board. And it also helps minimize our overtime costs, which some years, and it's a gamble. If years we have no snow, these guys will win. If there's years where we have super mega terrible snow, they lose. So it's
Do they
really,
really
But they're
lose
losing
some?
0.5%.
0.5%, it's not like they're really losing.
Right.
I'd rather have
I
the
think
money
your,
spread
Well, it's not
out.
half
your
a
original
percent.
argument was better. It makes sense.
but it's truthful. It's either it's a gamble. If they're counting on a really bad year with lots of trees that fall down,
Well, you
and
know what you're getting.
they can make a lot of overtime. But if I was them, I'd rather have a higher base
100%.
salary than the inconsistency of
I think they
overtime.
would say hope is not a strategy, so you're giving them something,
Yeah.
you know,
100%.
instead of making
You always
60
want a
grand,
higher
you're
base
making
salary.
whatever, and you know that you have that, and then the
Better,
overtime,
right.
that's all gravy.
Right.
Better for our budgeting, better to be able to anticipate, not to have something crazy should we have big
I like that
storms.
quote. I'm writing that down. Hope it's not a strategy. That's a good one.
Oh, I got a lot of them too.
I've never used that one before.
Oh, you haven't used that one?
No, I have not.
It really isn't.
Are there any questions on this page? I think there might be.
On this page, page 2 of 4,
Yes.
we didn't go through it, we're not,
Well,
I think the big one is,
that's why I'm waiting because I
we get down to
some
code
questions.
enforcement, 185.
Yep.
Up from 130.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait, that's not contracting services, is it?
That is-
So that, as I
It
said,
is?
so
We're
that,
going through this line by line, any questions, now is your time for.
so that is what I said earlier.
So code enforcer salaries.
No, public
Public
safety is
safety.
all lumped together with
So,
the pros.
on-
No, salaries is there,
Yeah.
and then right underneath it is public safety.
Okay.
The car,
That's why I have 2 pages, 3 out of 4. I didn't have.
Oh.
That's why. I've been looking
How
for
did
this
that
for 20 minutes to
Page
find
2
the
of
line.
4.
No, I have page 3 or 4 in my little.
Oh.
That's
no
on
page
page
2.
two.
Okay.
I'm all glad it's on there.
It's on the other stuff.
Okay.
Oh,
Frank.
So
Let's
when,
cut to the chase.
so in the expense,
The
it's
car for the year is 185 grand.
this,
All right.
Yes.
Up
that
from
is, this is the
117.
details how you. get there.
185.
180.
Up from,
Was
130.
140, but they have 130 under probably because it didn't start at the beginning of the year, so it would have been 130 had it been, it was 117 because we didn't start it January 1st.
It was 130 because you thought you were hiring allies with non,
no, I remember that. I'm just trying to sit there
and then
going,
just 185 was the actual
that's
cost.
what company like that.
You see it, well, what it
No, that's what I
public
was,
safety.
this one has the 2 pages, so there we go.
I'm sorry, Max. I had to fix a page and I obviously fixed the wrong page.
Are we going to vote across the board, obviously not tonight, or at some point, on our thoughts on, I mean, it can stay in the budget, but still throughout the year, we can vote whether to keep or
Of
to.
course,
Budget can always be amended.
with any item in the budget, except for hard contractual ones, like let's say
Garbage.
sanitation. I can't change that. But any other line item, we can always change it throughout the year.
Pretty sure you can't vote to lower the trustee salary.
Yes,
I don't think that's possible.
you have to start paying us,
We'll
AJ.
have you donating.
So-
Yeah, we have to, yeah.
It's like being on a board.
Correct.
You have to write a check instead of,
So that's up 30% from last year.
Mhm.
that's a lot.
Well, it's up 30% because if we did pivot to a less professional security company, we probably would have came in at the lower number. But we decided to stay with the professional security company because the services they provide are better than an untrained person who's just driving around.
So the people who feel that that's worth it are going to say, oh, it's only a few dollars more a year, like they said when they were here, right? For the people in Flower Hill Ridge, they can all afford it. And the people who are against it are going to be more annoyed now because now it's even more
Now
money
it's
than
like-
they feel.
That's a big bump.
30%.
Like, that's big. Well,
But you know, like,
$55,000 in our budget, it's not insignificant.
No, it's not, but we're only raising taxes this year by 1.5%.
Well, that's, I think,
First of all, I think
it would be nice if we weren't raising
you don't change the
taxes at all.
service. Either gonna, some of us may be against it, some of us may support it, but it's either 185 or zero, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, there's no way.
There's no, we're gonna get a cheaper service, that's goofy.
Yeah, when we have all seven at some point,
We thought
take
at the
the vote
time
and let
that
this
was
one.
legitimate.
I
No,
understand,
all seven
so
of
what
us
we
were
thought, I'm just saying going forward, we may have to have a vote on this one particular line item. My opinion is that we shouldn't be voting to do a cheaper service. We should either you for it or you're against it
and get the
and just
majority.
go home.
Mhm.
That's my opinion.
Yep, agreed.
I concur.
so you just say, okay, we just keep it?
Well, it's more enough.
So there's no vote on this budget tonight. This is a presentation. I am presenting this budget at the April 7th Board of Trustees meeting, as is. If this budget is voted down, I will have to come back with a new budget. We will have to come and have a separate vote on it.
But
A separate vote on the line
Well, we can
items?
terminate
On the
security.
budget,
Anytime.
I don't believe we do line item vetoes on this. It's either the whole
Anytime.
budget,
Yeah, we can have a vote in
Well,
June for security and kill it in June.
or you can
It
vote
doesn't have to
or you
be-
can vote to get rid of the budget. You can vote, the board can vote this budget, make believe this is the budget, and make no changes, down at the April meeting. And then we'd have to vote before April 15th, what's the date?
By May 1st.
By May 1st, which is before the next board
Be
meeting.
approved.
We would have to have it
adopt
But that doesn't make
Full
sense,
budget.
because if the only controversial item in there is something that can be terminated at any time, there's no reason to vote down the budget.
Well, maybe there's other things in here. We didn't get to the whole budget yet.
Maybe there is.
You're being very,
that is true.
we're trying to be thorough here. This is why we're here.
And that's why I have every line item here.
Yeah.
I could do the 50,000 foot level, but I know we want to look at
No,
this.
you have
That's
to.
why
It
I
makes
have
no
it.
sense to just do the 50,000 unless you weren't taking it seriously. No, we are taking it seriously.
I would just my opinion, I would just question the fact that if this budget's presented to us tonight, we're looking at it, why we can't vote at a meeting to say we want to end this, we want to end the building inspector, period, and then vote for the budget as amended. I don't know why we have to do a whole brand new budget just because we took an item out. That's my opinion.
Well, we don't. We can
No, you
adopt
don't take
this.
it out, Randall said. You vote, if you come back and you have, let's say you're not comfortable with 2 line items in here. So when it comes to your vote, you say no. And then the majority, even if I have an issue with 2 different line items than you do, let's hypothetically, right? And so the majority says we don't approve the budget, then you have to reconvene, come up with a second proposal, correct, budget?
Correct.
But my question is, why do I have to reconvene?
Because that's the law, right? That's how it's
Yes.
done?
I'd like to ask you.
I would ask Jeff, you
Yeah.
may be able to do like we do with local laws, you might be able to do an as amended situation, I'm not,
If the night before, if we have a budget, and the night before we get a phone call from the state that we're gonna get $500,000 in road repair, now you can't vote on the budget because we didn't put it in there? That doesn't make any sense to me.
When you were on Breezy Point.
We voted line items all the time, but it's not a municipality. We did that all the time. We're taking some of that out, we're putting some of that in, and then as modified, we voted on the budget.
And don't forget, you can amend the budget after you adopt it.
No, I get that.
Of course, it's not written in stone, and you should amend it a couple times a year, when you
I'm
see
just
things
curious.
out of whack.
That's-
Yes.
Move on.
Page 3.
So streets administration salaries.
That's rich.
That's just Rich.
Yeah, if you go to the next page, street maintenance salaries is the guys at the top. All three of them together.
So if we were to eliminate 0.5% of the overtime, how much of a raise would we give them on their base?
Looking at this,
Did we bring that spreadsheet or?
We didn't
Would
bring
it
the
be, would it be
spreadsheet.
equivalent
This
to a
reflect-
0.5%, you know, it's
it's
probably more than
like
that.
6%. This reflects 6%.
Okay, so actually, here, I can answer the question. Traditionally, on street maintenance salaries, we increase their salary by 3%. That's our standard raise. This year, it's 5.8%.
Would
It's
be-
what? Five?
So 5.8%. If you were to, so the difference between 3 and 5.8 is 2.8.
Yeah.
That's the increase in instead of giving them a 3% raise, we're gonna give them 5.8% raise and take the 2-time overtime to make it 1.5 times overtime.
So they're ahead. That's a good,
They're ahead
it's a good deal.
I mean, if they make a lot of overtime, they're certainly ahead for a couple of years, but it starts to balance out. Because
But think about it, so if overtime's 2%,
Mhm.
and now it's gonna be 1.5%, right?
It's not 2%, it's 2 times there.
2 times, and now it's
Yeah.
1.5 times.
Yes.
Right.
That's a lot of,
Well, that's why when you get,
unless they get called in 10 times, they're gonna be ahead of the game.
On your hourly, obviously, is based on 2,080 hours a year.
Mhm.
As these salaries go up and up, that number becomes like almost ridiculous. It's like almost more than like we make an hour. So it could be,
No, it's not almost more than we
it is,
make.
okay. So, and not that I begrudge them that. First of all, I've never heard of 2.5, double time for overtime.
I know.
It's-
Not private or public,
it's what we've
but
done
It
historically.
kind of, it used to,
It's
back when I was young, back in the old days, it was like the tier 1 Con Ed guys, they got double time. They got
What's tier one?
all those guys back then.
But it's also in our,
well, it is. We haven't changed the
No,
policy.
I'm
It
just-
hasn't, it hasn't been double.
It
Now-
could be nothing. I mean, I think it's better for that. I think it's better for
Yeah, I
both
think
of
it
us.
is better for,
I think it helps them out, get a little more
helps
money
them
up
budget
front.
their money better. Because at least they know now, instead of like watching the weather going, I hope it snows, because I'm like,
Well, if you remember what, 2 years ago, we had like no snow.
right.
They brought in nothing except for trees, but the midnight tree that comes down. It helps them get a better daily wage.
Yeah, it's good.
And not having to worry on the other stuff.
Also, one of the risk business, so protecting our downside risk in terms of if we had a winter or blizzards all year, that would completely blow our budget out.
Correct.
This is more likely to make sure we don't blow our budget out.
Which is why, if you go a few lines down, that's why we lowered our snowplow salaries down by 33%, because we're assuming that.
But if we
those
have 10
monies-
blizzards, the guys are probably gonna quit at the end of the year. They'll be like, why are we doing this? We're not getting enough overtime for it.
It's a gamble. I think they.
1.5 is still good.
Absolutely.
That's 48.
1.5 more, yeah.
Split up. That's your break even, basically.
I'm lucky I get under time.
The Parks and Rec, that's where we have the,
It's a funny show.
yes.
Such a good show.
So can I ask something?
Yes?
So from 2022-23, you had 70 grand, then you went to 60, so that's down 15%. Between 23 to 24, you went from 60 to 39, that's down 33%.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut the budget 33% in parks and recreation, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now we're saying we're up from 40, 39 and change to 50, that's up 10. What percentage of that is spent on the park per se? And is there a way to segregate what the playground and maintenance and cutting and things, tree repair that we had to do this year, pruning, all that for the park? What was spent on the park this year? Because I would argue, and then Mark, you have how much money coming in so far? You have 2,500 so you have $5,000 in donations.
10,005.
Total.
Yeah.
Is some of that not counting, well, St. Francis not giving because nothing's happening there until they do the sidewalk, right?
No, they're sending me a check.
But even though we're not doing it, St. Francis money is gonna be segregated for that island. We can't use St. Francis money on Country Club unless you tell me we
Not
can.
until, correct.
Right, so that's my point. So let's call it that.
Okay.
You see where I'm going on that?
Mhm.
That's great, but we can't do anything until we know what the Department of Transportation is doing, unless we just plan. Whatever we do, it's gonna either stay as mud, or we're not doing anything until that work is finished. So that 10 grand is in limbo. So now you got 5, and that 5 is
Like
for,
2,500
you have $2,500
Yes.
left
the
for that one on Northern
specific
Boulevard.
item, Right.
So that means for all of these islands, we have 10 grand?
That's what it looks like right now, yes.
That does not, I would argue that is not enough. And it is,
So,
and
Yeah, it's not
so
gonna-
that's the part in terms of drilling down. When we go to the beautification committee next week, we need to have numbers and say, here's what it costs us to maintain the park. Here's what we're operating with,
so
10
what
grand
we need
for.
from the beautification committee is a estimate on what an island costs. And we
Okay,
don't
I
have
got that for you. I will have that because, and I can say, depending on what we want to do,
Mhm.
but I'm just gonna say, unless you're just putting, black-eyed Susans and putting them around on the thing and planting grass, that's not gonna go very far. That's my point. So I think, we've been waiting when it's unfortunate Gary's not here, nor have I heard from him. I know he's busy, I get that, but we're having this meeting either one way, what?
It's not that busy.
He's busy. He's busy. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I get that. I just, why did it go from 70 to
Because we-
60 to 40?
Because we weren't spending that much money
And
on the
it
parks.
shows now when Rich is doing a great
I'm
job.
sorry, that money was not spent on the islands. That was for the parks and
No,
general
I know.
stuff.
Okay,
It
so
was not, it just, those
so there
funds
was
weren't
never
needed.
money for islands. That's sort of what's ever left over
We
from
have,
maintenance.
we have always maintained the islands.
So maintaining, not improving.
Where it needed a replacement bush or something, sometimes some monies went to that. But I don't have a breakdown on what we spent specifically on the islands.
So let's say of that 40 last year, I mean, I don't think we did any island improvements other than that one tree we took out on Country Club. So there were nothing spent in terms of improving islands. Is that fair to say?
I can't answer that question.
Well, somebody has to answer it before the 24th, because this is the whole point.
How
of
much
having
money
a
do you want
beautification
for this? How much
committee.
money do you want for beautification? What's
I
your
just
number?
want to have a
What's your
dialogue where we have a reasonable agreement. If we put together a beautification committee and we're Flower Hill and we want to showcase our village and make it attractive and say, hey, we've done this,
Mhm.
that we've actually put some thought into, what it would take. If you talk to Larry Cirillo, he'll say 30 grand for an island. That's not happening. It doesn't cost 30 grand.
How
because
many
we're not
islands, how
irrigating
many
and
islands
lighting.
does Larry have? I think it's like
No,
one.
and I'm just saying, I
You
know
keep on
that.
using
That's
Larry
not,
as an
that's not my
example.
point,
It's a
Randall.
terrible
My
example.
point is, whether it's Country Club, Rolling Rock, we're going to have these people here. We're not doing the Flower Hill Island because of the bridge over by you, the women's club. We decided on 3 or 4. I have a name of another, because Kevin's been great, but clearly, Rich needs to speak to what's been done for pruning and cleanup. What is the plan? If there isn't a plan, I think we need to pivot and go a different way, which is either hire a consultant or somebody to come in and help us with a plan. We're, 7 months later, we got nothing to show
And
for
we
it.
have to answer to the group that was here.
I think
Put the
so.
flowers back in Flower Hill. They're gonna wanna know why we don't have any.
That's all I'm saying.
We have a
So
new
if-
budget and
So
nothing
the
in there.
answer is,
Yeah.
we've gone from 70 to 60 to 40, and now we're another 10. You got 10 grand, and we're gonna do these 3 islands, and we're gonna stretch it, so how do we figure that out?
We don't, so if we have a budget in hand, 3 of us here, on what an island costs, we can do.
But Randall, we've been asking for that for how long? And we don't have it because we're relying on Kevin, nice guy, too busy, way overstretched. So my point is, why don't we build in a, whether, if it's not gonna be Ann.
It can, Ann is volunteered her time. If we want to use Ann, we can use Ann.
I don't think she'll be able to give us a budget on.
We need something.
I'm just saying.
But if she gives us a
She's an
planting
arborist.
You
list.
need a landscaper to give you a budget.
Yeah,
'cause
no,
they know what
Correct.
everything
it's
costs.
more than that. There's planting, there's
So-
landscaping,
Larry uses this guy called the ground guys, right? He tells them what he'd like. So let's say we need to keep it economical, right? So we want a tree with some grass, maybe black-eyed Susans around the base of the tree, whatever it is, something simple. Keep it so that we don't have 10 different ideas and themes going on throughout the,
Right,
we already
consistent.
agreed on that. So if we come up with this theme, we put Bartlett pears and whatever it is to have something consistent. We start with these 4 islands. You know, here's what we want. Can you give us a price for that, right? And then, and he uses these guys and says, this is what I want on Park Avenue, this is what I want, and then they'll tweak it, come back, and they'll plant it. We have the benefit, I guess, of having Rich and his guys be able to do the planting.
They are our labor, correct.
Right, so we have that, but we don't have the landscape architect to be able to do this right and not do, and that's my whole point, that I, you know, and we keep asking, every single month we've had this meeting, and nothing.
So what you're telling me is the person you were working with, Kevin, is that his name? I'm sorry.
Marla identified Kevin, who volunteered. He came and we did a survey of the, 10 islands in the fall. And Gary gave this report, and the report was, we need to start with cleanup. There's so much that needs to
And
be done.
that's what
And we
we're
started.
committed to.
My
this
point
budget.
is that, okay, so do we then say to the committee on this Monday, the 24th, we're not doing any planning this year, we're just doing cleanup, unless you want to volunteer, because we don't have any money. So we're basically, who wants to plant what where? Is that, I mean, it's at the point where there doesn't seem to be an agreement of either people don't care, they don't think it's important, because going from 70 to 40, and then, it just would seem that people don't care. Or it's, you don't want to, and look, if I'm the only one and nobody in this room, if you don't care, you don't care, you don't care. If it doesn't really matter to you, I'll drop it.
We over budgeted in the past for work that we were going to use in the park, and that's why we lowered the budget every year, because we didn't need those funds.
One thing this budget doesn't have is year-to-date what we spent on this stuff. Do we know if we spent, this is the budgeted amount, 40,000, 39, 134. Do we know how much we've actually spent on that category?
I happen to know what that category.
We
About.
have that data, it's just not. on this.
No, I know. That's why I asked.
Let's see if
And
have
we
it.
did.
Because my point is, if we've only spent 25,000 of it, then maybe we don't need much more than 40, but if we've already spent 39,000 on it, then we're going to.
We haven't spent 39,000. The cleanup of the few islands
Yep.
that we were told, we're gonna do that this year, not in this,
How much
it's
is,
not
I
in the
mean,
next.
that should be here before we sit here and say we're going to have this line item.
I can't show it.
There's no detail. And again, if nobody else cares, tell me that
I'm
right
just
now,
putting
because I
out
will
there
not
that the
waste any
cleanup
more
will
time
happen
to
this
get
year.
this committee
No,
together.
we need to beautify the village. And
The
we had-
cleanup,
We had people here yelling that, they're unhappy with the way it looks.
Right,
So-
Randall put together a committee, people volunteered, Marla and Randall
Yeah, so if
screened
people see the new
people for the
budget
committee.
and they're like, well, where is it? They're gonna be back here in May.
Well, no, March 24th is our meeting.
Do we know how much we spent?
I agree with you,
I
we're
can't get the data.
close, because he still has the spring to do all the mulch and whatever it is, and that's where a lot of the money comes in, so you're not gonna see all of that spent.
I know.
But figuring what,
20.
there was money left over to do the cleanup now.
You
So-
don't have to be there.
So
No.
What
no
needs to happen
money
is
for
you're right,
just
you
know
need to
it's
hire
actually-
someone, a landscape
That's
architect or a landscaping
Wear a
company
MAGA hat.
to plan out
have money
these
in it.
islands. You're welcome. That's, yes. May 31st.
So if we have a projection of then, to your point, if we want to do more, we have to add more. If 70 went down to 60 and went down to 50 because we budgeted all this money and charged the taxpayers this money, but didn't spend the money.
we know.
But it's what we go down. We need to know in the next day or so how much we spent out of that. And what's available.
What's the projection to the end of
For the next,
May?
yeah, well, no, it's only until the budget ends next month, the end of the month.
Whatever it is. There should be a projection of how much we think we're going to, if this category is coming into dispute, we should get a projection from our management team as to how much of that 39,000 they're actually going to spend. And if it's close, then if we wanna do something better, we gotta go higher. If it's 20 grand under that, then we don't really.
So if we only spend
I
20,
don't think it will.
if we only spend 20 out of the 40,
I don't think we did that, I'm just saying.
you think we spend
I think we're probably.
Yeah, because he
Do we need
did,
40,000?
we haven't built in mulch for the spring yet, so we haven't paid for that yet.
So let's assume there's nothing left, because this has been I think it's pretty realistic. Like, you're not putting a lot of slush in there, you use what you usually have in the park, things come up, right? Like the trees that died that you had to clear, that stuff, it happens, right? Maintenance or flooding or.
Yes, we went from 70 to 60 to 50 to 40, because every year we put in too much money in that budget and we didn't spend it. That's my guess. We know the reason to do it, or you just
you're
got
looking
lazy.
for places to save
That's
money, and you
possible.
can
Yes.
take it there.
That's possible too.
For that.
We don't know.
But to your point, I don't think a 10 grand increase is consistent with the direction we want to go, if in fact we want to make these things nicer. I don't necessarily agree with the $30,000 increase, but I think somewhere in between is the
No,
number.
and I'm just throwing that out, I don't either, but I'm saying, what direction and how committed are we? And if I'm the only one, then overrule me and say, you know what, let's
It isn't.
spend it somewhere else, if people don't care.
I think people care,
think
because they
everybody
showed
cares.
up. I mean, how many people respond
But
to that?
when they show up, we have to tell them something, Marlon.
Yeah.
So-
It's too late when they show up.
I think if I'm correct on this spreadsheet, I think we spent 15 of the
Yes.
30 million already.
So, want to pass it over?
I believe you.
As
This
long as we can just confirm it.
is.
And then the last thing you wanna do at a meeting like that of 6 women is everybody sitting around going, okay, I wanna do on this, on my island, I wanna do this on my island, which is counter
Which is
to,
how it all
How
started.
we.
Yes.
which is what we're trying to prevent, and try to have consistency so that we're building, even if we start small, which is why we're gonna start with a few islands,
Yes.
make those the showcase and build from there.
And
But
less-
with no
and-
budget, it's hard to do.
And lessons learned, because if whatever we plan doesn't work,
There's no water.
we won't repeat it.
There's a lot of things.
This is what you're
No,
spending.
right, you don't need rose
This is what we
bushes around
spend it-
islands that
This
the
is from
ground
last year, so
people,
you
that
can
Yeah.
gauge.
highway department
Um,
can't maintain.
this is
It's
what
too
they
much
budgeted.
maintenance. We
Right,
want
which
ease.
is why we got rid of our
Today, well,
junipers, and that's
to
why we
whatever,
got rid of
whatever.
the
Spring
sand.
comes.
And
It's very
this is what I'm
difficult to get
anticipating,
anything
based
out
on.
of it.
So wait, if
Okay.
we spend
Talking to everybody
15,
and
all-
based on what the last 3 months of last year.
But you haven't.
That's what I
gotten the,
anticipate.
How
Every
much
line
is
needs
the
to
mulch?
be.
gonna
So you
be-
think we're gonna basically spend what we budgeted?
I do.
I don't know.
You think
Now,
mulch?
if there's
Mulch is
any money, but
$25,000?
included in that is,
But it could be 10.
a full day's
But
worth
if we
of
only
work
spend
to
15,
clean
it's
up,
still
because
only
that's what
25.
Kevin
I'm
Howe
not
said.
here to argue with you. I'm
No,
just
no.
To
saying.
those who are
Figure it
leaving.
out.
Okay.
We're all
Maybe that
speculating
mulch-
without, we need
Well,
the
we have money for
numbers.
2 days if that happened.
So so 15 is what we've spent against what the budget, which
Right.
was.
But I call them management. Our workers are anticipating that we're gonna basically hit the 39 number. But that
The
includes
budget
items that
year
we hadn't
ends pretty
planned on,
soon.
including the cleanup. Well, but the spring is gonna be
That's when
more.
you,
That's
that's
when you
when
clean
you
up.
will do whatever beautification and much more work than during the winter. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But
But don't we have to spend that money before the end of the budget year, fiscal year, or
Well,
we can roll it?
If
Well,
we don't
you-
spend it,
that's
it
your
either becomes
transfer
a surplus.
Yeah, transfer.
in
Or
order,
balances out other line items that were went over budget.
in order to be able
have
to
to
save
build
money
the
for
money
that
back
whole,
together.
this
No,
whole list.
it's all
You
money.
gotta,
Yeah,
you gotta
right,
save
right, yeah.
that, try those.
I'm just figuring a way
The
to
idea
use
is not
some
to
of the
try to
money
spend
we
it,
don't
but-
spend this year to roll into
Assuming
next
there
year.
is.
But the budget can
We
be,
could
if you
do some
decide
of
to
that
add more
work
into
now,
beautification.
if it's other
just
types
take
of
it from somewhere else.
I think at minimum, we probably
Okay.
need, I think,
I feel like here we are talking about this, we've been talking about it for months. So now we're up against the 11th hour of we need to come up with an agreement on a budget. And it's either the trustees of Flower Hill care about this beautification that we've heard from these residents. This wasn't just a few, right? They'd like it returned to what it previously had been years ago, and we're either gonna do it or we're not.
we have to do, we can't have muddy triangles, it's just not.
What would
Well, we
15
could.
grand
It's
do?
a sign of, a
We could.
dysfunctional management
You
of the
know,
village.
listen, it's massaging.
When you let the
but
place just
nothing
get
is-
run down and look
because it's a pretty conservative budget. I think we could do better in
I
some
mean,
areas.
can we find
Revenue and-
$25,000 or $30,000 somewhere in this budget that
Sure.
we'll reallocate to that?
We can,
It's not that much money.
there's plenty to
It's hard to solve.
reallocate in this budget.
You know.
If you'd like, we can raise taxes more. That's one quick
We
way.
did last year, and we're spending
And
55 grand
And
on
we're
the
raising this year,
protection
1.5.
services. Right there.
If you wanted to raise it more than 1.5, we can do
No,
that.
that's fine.
Other-
Is there anything in here?
Or you
that-
can look for, I don't, we try to really run a very tight budget. We could always take
I
some
mean,
numbers.
you're gonna have to answer to these people. You're the mayor, so what are you gonna say to them?
We don't have the money, we don't want to raise your taxes, so therefore, how do you feel about going to your local island and planting a few tulips? I mean, that's,
If cleanup is already included in this amount,
Just
which I.
thinking of how we're gonna all protect ourselves, because it's gonna come up.
Not for 20 islands, but for the
no,
ones who
a
want to do.
few, just a few.
4, right? Didn't we identify 4 in the meeting?
I was
Three?
just told that.
Bayberry, the country club, and
Yes.
whatever the third one
And we
was.
already know we don't have the money
Let AJ ask the question.
to do all these islands in one
I
year.
was just told that we had money, of the 39,000 we budgeted, it would not have all been spent, but for the fact that we're going to do cleanup on some of the items. That was how it was explained
That's
to me.
correct.
So that meant that we were over budget last year per se, because we added a new task and kept, because our money was still low, it still came to even. So if you follow my thinking here, that means that 39,000 should include next year cleanup, because we obviously were able to do it this year for that amount of money, so we should obviously be able to do
Let me,
it for
let me
that.
explain. There's 2 kinds of cleanup. There's the cleanup
Okay.
that we perform, and that costs us nothing. Then there's the cleanup when we bring in a tree company to cut down or prune overgrown trees that we're not capable of doing ourselves.
Like safety.
So again, unless I heard wrong, even at a budgeted amount of 39,000, we are capable of doing that under this year's budget.
Yes.
So that means this was new stuff that we asked management to do that wasn't really what the number we contemplated last year. So if we were able to do it last year for that amount, my point is we should be able to do it next year for that amount. So if you want to improve off of that, so far we have about $10,000 in there that would be able to make us do 10,000 addition to what we did this year.
I think you're speculating on what you've heard without seeing numbers. I do not think that, because you don't have the benefit of, we don't have numbers in front of us, okay? You're speculating on something you heard or you think, but we don't know that to be the fact.
Well, you never know but you never know.
You do, because you can say, they know what they spent. Rich will be able to tell you
There's no
what
way.
it is. And we don't even know if this cleanup has been done. Has it been
No.
done?
Cleanup has not been done.
It's expected to
We,
be done, the 25,000 to be
We have
spent
enough
over the
for
next month.
2 days
Yes.
worth of
That's my
cleanup,
understanding.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
one of which, I mean, that's what the estimate was, but there is enough for 2 days. But the estimate from Kevin, well, Rich, that
Right.
would be 1 day for those 3 or 4 islands. So that is without a doubt in there. And yes, you can go forward and say, hopefully, if you want to do another 3 next year, yes, you can clean up those 3. But there is some increasing pricing and stuff too. It's
Yeah,
not
of
just, so that's the only, just a little bit of a caveat,
it's just since nobody's given me an estimate of how much it costs to do these things.
That's
That's the
the
problem.
key right
That's-
there.
Yes.
Since no
That's
one's
what
done that, I'm just, right now, we're adding $10,000 to last year, which to me means we do everything we did this year, plus additional cleanup that we hadn't contemplated doing, because that's covered by that amount.
We
And
think,
we're adding $10,000. We don't think, we're being told that right now by the people that do our work here, that that's what's included in that. So this is adding $10,000 to do additional beautification. I don't know if we necessarily agree that that's enough, but that's how I'm looking at that number. And I'm thinking if we do 5 to 7 for 3 different ones, what we really need is 15 to 20,000 to do 3 beautiful, pure, new, different from this year beautifications. And I don't know where I came up with that number, but I'm just thinking if it gets to be a point where we want to spend more than $7,000 to beautify an island, I want to know why I'm spending more than $7,000.
If you had flowers, that would be, you would spend it pretty quick. You would be surprised how quickly it's finished,
Okay,
but
but
you don't.
that's the one thing we're not,
Right.
we have no
That's what we need to
idea.
know.
That's
From
true.
the
We have no
landscape
idea.
architect to say how much in
Right,
square
yeah.
footage to.
So somebody's gotta tell me how much it costs to beautify.
We have been asking that for probably the better part of how long, Marley?
the year,
What?
the year.
A year, thank you. We've asked for plans, we've asked, and it hasn't happened. So now you say, okay, we either give up on Kevin and, and say, well, I mean, I can call the guy that does the work for Muncie Park, but I don't want to do that because I don't have the authority to do that. Or to get an idea of,
Do ground guys design or they just?
if you tell them what you're thinking, like,
Okay.
then they,
They
yes,
did a nice
they'll work
job.
with you.
Muncie Park looks great.
Right, I'm just not, it looks beautiful. I'm not sure if I don't know that
That's what
if they
they do.
design or not, or if they just.
And a lot of that is annuals, right?
Any good landscaper designs, if you have a good landscaper, you tell them what concept you want, what you're looking for, they know the species, they know how, whether or not they need, water, more water, less water, sun, less sun.
Okay.
So I would say we reach out to these ground guys and say, this is what we want, and
Give us an
let them
estimate.
slap together and tell them to be 10% above, just to be on the safe,
Yeah, give
safe
us an
side,
estimate and.
and take that number and divide it by 4.
I don't remember what the islands we agreed on. Country Club, Rolling Rock, or was the third one?
Rolling Wood, yeah.
I'm gonna say rolling.
Rolling
Wood.
Not Rolling Rock.
Metro beer,
Thinking about a beer?
Rolling Wood,
Rolling Wood,
Rolling Wood.
Country Club.
and what was the third one?
I believe
The
it
one
was
on
the
Northern
one
Boulevard, right?
on Northern Boulevard by Joanne's Pizza.
Oh, right,
With the bench.
right, because we're gonna wait on the.
Not with the
because
bench, the one where the
Ridge
Flower
Drive,
Hill sign
right.
is.
Sorry,
We're
The
gonna
one
wait on
on
the
Northern.
Ridge Drives because of
Okay.
National Grid.
but because we're getting funding from,
Yeah, it's not the one with the bench, it's the one with
it's the
the
one
sign.
closer to
Yeah,
Northern Boulevard.
Yeah,
The one that
It's
a
actually
truck
pretty
just
small.
ran over my
Right.
damn rocks over there. I'm happy. That was the island that you selected, or the group selected.
So would it be fair to move on to ask trustee Collins to call these other people and see?
I would like for some landscape person, company,
Mm-hmm.
architect, whoever, maybe it could become Ms. Frankel, to give us a reference diagram or reference drawing with reference plants, and we can price that stuff out. We just don't, that's why we just threw 10 grand in,
Well-
because I don't have an estimate on what an average island would cost.
No,
And
Just
all
gonna suggest on a first go, because these islands have been sort of, you might want to have someone actually, not just tell you the plans. I think someone has to make a plan for the first go. I think then after
Yes.
that you can do
Plan has
yourself.
plants, a plant list.
But I understand people, when we first moved here, it was beautiful, on the sides of the road.
We're literally, I don't want to say black-eyed Susans, but it was like the black-eyed Susans.
and Stella, for 2 years, she volunteered to help, I think she just got discouraged.
Stella, Stella was responsible for the tulips.
Right.
And nothing more than the tulips.
I think it was something.
Yes.
All right, so what are you doing?
So what are we? So first of all, I know winners. Do you care? Eric is your co-chair. I think you're-
I don't think we have a point in the budget. I just don't know what,
The number probably should, instead of 50, it should probably be closer to 75 would be an estimated guess. And that's only because I know my parents have done with projects and what it's cost them. That would be a ballpark guess.
I'm
What-
basically,
If we're
what'd
gonna-
you get?
Probably closer to 75
Oh,
instead
the
of
budget.
50. Instead
Okay,
of 50.
yeah.
That would be, in my head, for some reason, that is the number that's swirling around. And I've seen enough landscape plans and heard about projects in my day. For 3 islands, probably give
Yes.
10
Maybe
to
What
12.
does a
Maybe.
fairly mature, Marlon,
What?
not the size tree that we had them get taken out, but what does a
That's in the
mature?
park now and it's actually thriving.
Great.
I'm just saying, it's not
Have
dead.
No, no, no.
Under $1,000. I have a price for, like a dogwood for the other project that you asked about, that I have to,
You can't list everything.
that I'm just working with,
Wait, I'm not.
Not
you,
She's
yeah.
working, yeah.
right now.
Oh, wait.
But yeah, so like a nice 10-foot, 12-foot,
That's what I mean,
yeah, that dogwood
And what are
was
they
about
like?
$800. I mean, some are less depending on what you get, it depends,
It depends on the size of the caliper.
putting in like a 10-foot,
It's only $800?
yeah, that's, Rich got a price.
No.
So,
Make sure we don't get trees with roots that spread and
no,
we'll
There
tear
were
the road apart.
specific trees that are good for
Dry environment.
Yeah.
traffic
Dry.
islands.
Yeah.
So they don't get to this and they don't.
Which I believe, that's a dogwood flower, if I remember properly.
And that they don't
Think
need a lot of
so. It does look
maintenance,
like
there's
it.
a lot
I
of
think it is.
positives.
I think you're wrong.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of
I
rough
think
when
that's
your name of your village and your logo is a flower and we
And you
have
have
no flowers.
Yes,
It's like.
I had to call the DOT today and I said, she's what villages? I said, Village of Flowers. She goes, oh, that's so nice. I was like, go
Yeah.
try and find a flower.
Well, that's
In
when that
Flower
person
Hill.
stood up
Yeah.
and said, you know, we want to put the flower back in
Yes.
Flower Hill.
Yes.
It's like, that's a great slogan, but.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All right, we will work, I don't know who, but we will work on getting a new landscape designer
Listen,
to design.
We
So
should
we have a
tell the
plant list.
committee that something's going
I
on.
could at least reach out to this company and just see what, like, how they bill, or is it like a retainer, is it a?
Yeah,
is it- Like, if we were to spend $1,000 a month, and here's what we're gonna get for it, we're gonna get, you know, they would say, we're gonna get X, right? I'm just making that up, I don't know, or are they paid, we have 3 islands, we want basic plans, we'll do the planting, give me a ballpark of what, you know, I don't know.
Right, we need reference design, reference
Well, you can
designs.
use Larry Cirillo, I think there's no better reference that I could think of.
No, it's called a reference design.
Oh,
It's not
but you meant a reference on the
No,
company.
no. We need a reference design. A reference design takes
Mhm.
this random island and says, here's the planting list. Big tree, shrub, another tree, and then
But we don't have that without a lens, like how.
that's what we,
No.
that's what we need.
So
That's it.
how do we get that,
Well, we used to have a landscape architect.
but how do we pay for
Rich
that?
Gibney used to be our landscape architect.
You pay someone to draw plans like you would a house.
So who are we paying and where is that in the budget? That's, Randall's right, but where are we, nobody's doing that
Yeah,
for
we used
free.
to have Rich Gibney. He's a landscape architect.
So at one point,
He's very
we were
expensive.
using this
He's
Kevin.
expensive.
We still can
yeah.
fall back onto Ann. If we don't want to use Miss Frankel as her services, we can go elsewhere. She has volunteered her services.
The budget for this year is screwed with that.
Not
You- you need-
necessarily, 'cause
No,
maybe
you
we'll
need,
raise
you need
some
an
money.
estimate.
Can
You
you ask?
need an estimate before we
Is
go on
Kevin
a
a
budget.
possibility to ask if we could pay him to give us this?
We already asked that.
Oh, he
He's
doesn't
not come
have
That's
back.
what she did for a living for
Ask
35
Gary.
years.
So what
That's
do
what she
we
does.
Ann designed the
Okay.
park, if you remember.
Yeah, so what?
My whole basement,
If
our whole
Ann- if
basement is
Ann's
filled with
volunteered to
hand-drawn
do it.
architectural plans.
Okay, well, we were pivoting to something new, and that's why we're trying to use this Kevin person, but if you guys want to use Ann.
I'd love to use Kevin, but he's too busy.
Then he's
Because do you
out.
see anything here that we've been talking about this for months?
I had an irate Ann Frankel at my desk last week. and said, why aren't I doing the landscape designs? And I said, yeah, and was yelling, your mom's yelling at me.
She wants to do landscape.
Yeah, she was,
So
why
why
are
does she do it? Why don't we get her to do it? We got someone free who lives in the village who actually cares. He'll do it.
All right, then I'll invite her to the beautification committee meeting on the 24th.
And she
She's
can
got,
talk.
she's got nothing to do. She was cleaning out old children's books today, so she can.
We're collecting.
Are you?
Did you read my mayor's newsletter? There's a local person who's collecting.
Oh, really? I got 2 big boxes.
Oh,
of
read-
children's
just
books.
cleaned out.
Read the mayor's newsletter.
I forgot
You
what
can't
it was.
This is
have
nice
that
woman.
Talking about my family.
The one that came out today?
Or just take pictures
Oh,
of
my
the
newsletter
tree
that just came out
and
last
send
week.
them to her, and she can give us an estimate.
She'll
So we can put it in the budget.
She'll take a little
Went out on
needle
Thursday morning.
measuring device. She'll walk around all of them, count
Trying
the
to
square
review.
footage, draw it out.
Okay, so
We just need
it
to
sounds
know
like
for the
Ann is
budget.
back. Is that what we've decided?
Well, no, because I think it's only
If she
fair,
can.
Gary's not here in,
Yeah.
I don't wanna decide
Oh,
for
yeah,
Gary,
Thursday.
maybe he,
Yeah.
what?
There's a woman, you scroll all the way towards the bottom and there's a contact for who'll pick up the books.
Perfect.
Because the whole idea was to have continuity, right, of what we're building, to have a grand scheme
We all agreed on
at
that.
low maintenance.
We all
because
agreed on that, yes.
Lower maintenance so that we don't have,
And stuff that was,
Fireworks
and,
and
I
and
know.
preferably, I'll call it native stuff that was low water usage.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
let's move on.
Yes. I mean, I can reach out to her, but if somebody wants to, I try to keep it separate sometimes,
Yeah.
but if we.
how about this? Let me just talk to Gary out of courtesy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I will text you and then,
We
is
can-
that agreeable, Randall,
Yes,
Marla?
Yes,
If down the line, sometimes she gets paid for it, I just keep it
I
away
understand,
from it.
I
so
understand, yeah.
that's-
I believe your mom volunteered, but yes.
No, she does, but I'm just saying, that's why you know me, I just keep it
That's
separate.
fine. I see your mom a couple times a week.
Yeah, I see her too.
She's here often. All right, were there any other questions other than we had the parks and other than the patrol?
Does she come and pick them up, the books?
Yeah, but it's just to call her.
Pull that one,
I
Mike.
got so many books.
She'll help you out. We will look to, Marla and I will, and Suzanne, we'll go through this budget and see if there's somewhere to to reallocate funds from some other areas into the parks budget. And we'll get back to you either before the budget meeting or before the budget meeting, because I will redo all this
How much
and send it to everybody.
to do 0.1%, how much money would you have to spend? Like if you went from 1.5 to 1.6% increase, roughly how much money is that?
Okay, back into that. What the number
Finance guy.
Well, it's a 34 grand difference down 1%.
If I had my mouse, I could
When
do
I
it in
tested
3
out
seconds.
1.75, it's about 38,000.
I don't have my,
And I don't have my phone, so 20 something, right?
I'm saying if we added 0.1% to the budget for this, how much would that be?
Don't worry about it. Sure.
The
I stole
budget
it from inside
without,
the office, so
without the fire?
I'm just going for the real, she's on the real property taxes, because of the
Oh,
fire.
the tax, no, you're right.
Yeah, but it's still in there, because
Do it on the
it's a
real property
percentage,
tax.
so.
Yep.
I hate that.
yeah.
I use the
Tax.
dinosaur, I use the dinosaur calculator, the HP 12C, so everything's reversed.
Big company. Lawyers account, they're not
I
gonna-
have
Here it
it. Yes.
I have to get here at 11,
what's our last year's number? 2191?
and it's already 8:45. So.
That's wrong.
How come we
is.
haven't changed
Yeah,
the battery
Seven
yet?
thirteen.
Yeah, I got a battery at
That's
7:30.
until you change the clock. It's not even that. It's all just-
I never changed the
Who's
clock
not
in my
there?
kitchen,
Who's
but
not
now it's correct. And I
Is it okay?
have to stop myself from
We
going
need another
backwards.
$50 in the budget for that.
Well, you just.
For what?
do you mean batteries?
Batteries, yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
well, let's see who gets it first.
It's $14,000
This is like a
more.
Mathadon?
Should I have a calculator? 14,000 more?
14,520 is giving it a 1.75% increase.
Oh, no, he said 1.6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No,
It's-
that's a
Okay.
quarter of a
It's
point. He said
low.
1/10 of a point.
So
An extra
last year,
35,000?
we
A tenth of a point is
raised
35,000.
14%. Is that right?
I don't
What was
have
our
that.
increase last year, 14%?
Yes, yes.
And this we're talking about.
The
going
tax
up
levy
one-
went
You
up
did it on
14%.
last year's tax levy, Suzanne?
So if we go from 1.5 to 1.6%
It's
without
only
changing anything else,
14?
as is.
I didn't say the
it's
wrong
another
one when I did it.
$34,000.
1.6%.
Am I right about that, Max? If we
2,226,000.
add 34,000 to this
$2,000
year's budget, it would go from a 1.5% increase to a 1.6% increase. So even if everything in here is just the same,
And how many households
and
do
we
you
add
have?
34,000 to
It's only
the
giving you
beautification.
we have
it goes
$2,000.
from 1.5 to 1.6.
What are we doing?
No, I thought I had seen 1.75, 38,000.
That's much.
No, it was 34,000.
Six-
He said
2,000?
not 1.75, he wanted 1.6.
Right.
$16.75 per household,
1.75 gives you a big, you know.
give or take. I mean,
No, what I'm saying, I'd like to find the money elsewhere, but even if you go from 1.5 to 1.6, that's a significantly lower increase than last year's. And you're talking about adding $34,000 to the budget just for,
$14.
and without beating a
Percent
dead
cap.
horse, if the
So
security.
will our residents want to spend $14 a year to beautify
Potentially,
them?
but you can't bank on that.
I would say so. They're willing to pay $1,000 for security, right? 'Cause everybody's so rich here. It's that guy's statement.
That guy's
It's
like,
gonna
oh,
be-
I don't care, whoa.
Yeah.
just so
So
clear,
let
it's
her-
14, it would have to be, an additional $14 a home until you get to the flower bed near my house, which
How
I'm
many
expecting
houses-
to
how many
spend at
houses
least
do we have?
50 to
You
60,000.
you want the
Of the
pool,
fountain, wildlife, yeah.
That's what the donation comes in.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
only
yeah.
15, we only have 1,500.
the aviary, the parrots.
Sponsors don't like us.
And we have 5,500 residents?
We have a little less than
lambs,
5,000.
the grass.
4,800.
Just want to have my son's
So it's
first word.
1,500, not 2,000.
We say
so
six-
probably-
we say 1,600 homes.
$20 a house.
48.
So if it's $20 a house, that gives us $32,000 of.
We're at 40 right now. If you
Unification,
go
yeah.
back to 60, which it was 2 years ago, or 70, you're still talking about an increase of less than $20 a person.
Yeah.
You're talking about $15 a person, not touching anything else in the budget.
So raise the tax another 0.1%.
That's my point.
It's not insignificant. You're raising 1.5, I mean, which is,
That's why.
I would like to see it not go up at all, but.
Well, we gotta remember, it's also less than the cost of inflation. Everything, all of our
Everything's less
expenses.
than what-
It's under 2 months, it's under 2%.
The problems if we go into a recession, everything's going to be different.
Market dropped 1,000 points today.
Well, no, it
900,
came back
900,
200.
870.
All right. Question, instead of a 1.5% tax increase, I am recalculating this with what percent?
1.6.
1.6.
1.6.
Give you 2,100
Well,
more.
and then we'll see where we can shave from other parts of the budget. We'll get back to you guys. Sound reasonable?
All right.
Yep, sound reasonable?
Yep.
Any other questions?
Nope.
All right.
Thank you.
Good Josh. Thank you.